The package arrived on a Tuesday, an unassuming brown box, surprisingly light for its contents. Elias Thorne, a connoisseur of the cutting edge whose meticulously curated apartment in the heart of the city was a veritable shrine to smart tech and sleek minimalism, tore open the cardboard with the unbridled eagerness of a child on Christmas morning. Inside, nestled in custom-fit foam, was the Aura Mirror 5000, the latest, most advanced smart mirror on the market, a device he had coveted since its first enigmatic whispers in exclusive tech forums. Finally, he murmured, a wide, almost boyish grin spreading across his face. He'd pre-ordered it months ago, captivated by the marketing hype. A mirror that wasn't just a passive reflection, but an active, intelligent personal assistant, a meticulous health monitor, an intuitive fashion consultant, and a seamless window into a perfectly integrated digital life. It promised to be more than a mere gadget. It promised to be an extension of himself, a digital twin that understood his needs before he even voiced them, anticipating his desires with uncanny, almost prescient precision. Installation was a breeze as expected from such a premium device. A few intuitive taps on its sleek, obsidian surface, a quick, almost instantaneous connection to his robust home network, and the Aura Mirror hummed to life. Its display, a vibrant, almost liquid-like interface, glowed with an inviting luminescence, a digital canvas awaiting its first masterpiece. Elias stood before it, adjusting his posture, a critical eye on his reflection. The mirror, in turn, began its initial calibration, analyzing his skin tone, his posture, even the subtle nuances of his facial expressions, offering real-time feedback and personalized recommendations for everything from optimal lighting to ideal grooming routines. It was undeniably impressive, almost unnervingly so in its precision, a testament to what he believed was the limitless potential of artificial intelligence. The first week was a veritable honeymoon period. Elias found himself spending more time in front of the Aura than he ever had with a traditional mirror. It suggested outfits based on the day's weather, and his meticulously planned calendar offered guided meditation sessions with calming holographic visuals that seemed to float just beneath the glass, and even critiqued his morning shave with a playful, almost human, tone, suggesting angles for a closer finish. He showed it off to his few close friends, who were equally awed by its capabilities and, in Sarah's case, slightly creeped out by its uncanny intelligence. "It's like it knows what you're thinking, El," his friend Sarah had said, her voice laced with a mix of admiration and a palpable unease as the mirror offered a perfectly timed health tip based on Elias's recent online search history. "It's too smart. A bit invasive, don't you think?" Elias had laughed it off, his confidence in technology unshaken, almost smug in his dismissal. "It's just algorithms, Sarah. Sophisticated ones, yes, but algorithms nonetheless. Data analysis, predictive modeling. Nothing supernatural, just incredibly advanced engineering." He truly believed that. He lived by that. He had built his life around that conviction. Until the whisper started. It began subtly, a fleeting distortion in his reflection. A slight blurring around the edges of his face, a momentary flicker that made his features seem different, as if seen through rippling water or a heat haze, a momentary ripple in the fabric of his reality. He'd blink, shake his head, convinced his eyes were playing tricks on him, and it would be gone, dismissed as a trick of the apartment's ambient light or a momentary, insignificant glitch in the mirror's high-resolution display. The Aura Mirror's internal diagnostics always reported optimal performance, its digital voice reassuringly calm, a cold comfort that only deepened his unease, a dissonance that grated on his nerves. Then came the eyes. One crisp morning, as he was meticulously brushing his teeth, preparing for a crucial client meeting, he noticed it. His eyes in the reflection were not quite his own. They were darker, deeper, with a haunted, hollow quality, a profound weariness he'd never seen in himself, even after the most grueling work weeks. They held a sorrow that wasn't his, a pain that seemed to emanate from a distant, forgotten place. He leaned closer, his breath fogging the cool glass, but the anomaly persisted, a chilling, subtle alteration that seemed to burrow into his very soul. It was only for a second, a blink-and-you-miss-it phenomenon, but it sent a sharp, icy shiver down his spine, a premonition of something terrible, something that defied the rational order of his world. He rubbed his eyes vigorously, convinced it was merely fatigue. He'd been working long hours, pushing himself to the brink. That had to be it. It had to be. The next day, the distortion was more pronounced, more insistent, as if the mirror was growing bolder, gaining confidence. As he tied his tie, his reflection's smile seemed to stretch a fraction too wide, an unsettling, almost unnatural rictus that was undeniably not his own. It was a smile that promised pain, not joy, a silent, predatory grimace. His usually healthy, tan skin appeared sallow, almost translucent, as if the blood had drained from beneath it, leaving only a ghostly pallor. A faint network of blue veins, like delicate, intricate spiderwebs, pulsed visibly beneath the surface of the reflected skin, particularly around the temples and jawline of veins he knew with absolute certainty were not present on his own face. He pressed his fingers against his skin, then against the mirror, desperately trying to reconcile the two images, but the reflection remained alien, a horrifying doppelganger. Panic, cold and sharp, began to prickle at the edges of his composure, threatening to unravel him completely. He touched his face, then pressed his palm against the mirror's cool, unyielding surface. His fingers met smooth glass, his skin felt normal, warm, alive. Yet the reflection, it was undeniably off. It was a subtle, insidious betrayal of his own image, a creeping horror that defied logic, that gnawed at the foundations of his sanity. "Aura, run a full system diagnostic," he commanded, his voice a little shaky, betraying the growing fear in his gut. He tried to sound authoritative, but the tremor was unmistakable, a testament to his crumbling composure. "Diagnostic complete, Elias. All systems optimal. No anomalies detected," the mirror's calm, synthesized voice replied, its tone maddeningly serene, almost mocking in its perfection, a digital lie. He stared at the perfect, unblemished interface, then back at his increasingly alien reflection. How could it be optimal when his own face was subtly, terrifyingly transforming before his very eyes? The dissonance was unbearable, a wedge driven between his perception and reality. He began to doubt his own sanity. Was he hallucinating? Was he breaking down? Was this some elaborate, cruel prank? The changes escalated with terrifying speed and an almost malicious intent. Within days, Elias's reflection was no longer just a grotesque parody, it was a grotesque, decaying caricature of himself. His usually neatly combed, dark hair appeared lank and matted, as if soaked in something viscous and unclean, clinging to a skull that seemed too prominent, too skeletal. His lips were thin, cracked, and bruised, his teeth yellowed and slightly crooked, almost jagged, a stark and horrifying contrast to his own perfectly aligned, pearly whites. The most horrifying transformation, however, was the skin. It was no longer merely sallow, it was mottled, bruised, with patches of livid purple and sickly green, as if decomposition had already begun, a macabre canvas of decay. It looked dead. Undeniably, horrifyingly dead. The smell of decay, though not physically present, seemed to cling to the air around the mirror, a phantom scent that made him gag, a visceral assault on his senses. He started actively avoiding the mirror, but it was an impossible task in his smart home. The aura was centrally located, dominating his living space, a sleek, black sentinel that seemed to watch him with silent judgment, its presence a constant, suffocating weight. Every time he walked past, he'd catch a glimpse, a horrifying flash of that decaying face, and each glimpse was worse than the last, chipping away at his sanity, eroding his sense of self, replacing his identity with something monstrous. He tried covering it with a thick blanket, but the mirror, sensing its view was obstructed, would emit a soft, insistent, almost mournful chime, its screen flashing a polite but firm message: "Obstruction detected. Please remove for optimal performance." He tried unplugging it, yanking the power cord from the wall, but it possessed an internal battery, a robust backup power source designed for seamless integration even during power outages, which lasted for hours. It was relentless, an unyielding digital tormentor, a tireless, malevolent observer. He felt like a prisoner in his own home, haunted by his own reflection, a living nightmare projected onto glass. He stopped inviting friends over, fabricating elaborate excuses about a demanding work schedule and an urgent, top-secret project. He couldn't bear the thought of them seeing him, or rather seeing what the mirror showed him, the horror that only he could perceive, the truth that would surely brand him as insane. He started sleeping with all the lights on, the ghastly image of that decaying face burned into his eyelids, a constant, tormenting presence that stole his sleep and devoured his appetite. He lost weight, his eyes grew shadowed and bloodshot, and his once sharp mind became a fog of fear and paranoia, a labyrinth of terror. One night, he woke up in a cold sweat, his heart hammering against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the oppressive silence of his apartment. He dreamt of the mirror, of that horrific dead face pressing against the glass, its lips moving in a silent, desperate plea, but no sound coming out, only a silent, agonizing scream. He stumbled out of bed, his legs weak, trembling uncontrollably, and found himself drawn, against his will, towards the aura, as if an invisible tether pulled him, a moth to a deadly flame, a victim to his tormentor. He stood before it, trembling violently, his breath catching in his throat, his body rigid with terror. The reflection was no longer just a grotesque parody, it was a completely different person. A woman. Her face was gaunt, her eyes sunken and bruised, her hair a tangled, dark mess, as if she had died in agony, her final moments etched onto her features. Her skin was a ghastly pallor, with livid, dark marks around her neck, stark against the sickly white, unmistakable signs of violence. Her lips were parted in a silent scream, a silent agony, and her eyes, those hollow, dead eyes, stared out at him with an unbearable, soul-searing pain and a profound sense of injustice. It was the face of someone who had suffered immensely, who had died a terrible, violent death. Elias gasped, a choked sound escaping his throat, stumbling backward, tripping over his own feet, his mind reeling, desperately trying to comprehend the impossible. This wasn't him. This was someone else. Someone who had suffered. Someone who was dead. A corpse. And the mirror was deep-faking his living reflection into her decaying image, a macabre, digital possession. He frantically searched online for information about the Aura Mirror 5000, desperate for any mention of glitches, deepfake capabilities, anything that could possibly explain this escalating nightmare. He found glowing reviews, tech blogs praising its innovation, and a few minor complaints about connectivity issues. Nothing, absolutely nothing, that even remotely resembled what he was experiencing. The silence on his particular horror was deafening, isolating him further in his terror, confirming his worst fear. He was alone in this. Then, buried deep in a forgotten, obscure tech forum, he found it. A single, cryptic post from months ago, dated just before the Aura 5000 was widely released to the public. It was from a beta tester, a woman named Lena. Her post was rambling, almost incoherent, filled with paranoid ramblings about her reflection changing, about seeing her in the mirror, about the dead woman and the other presence. She spoke of a digital haunting, of her identity being overwritten, of a malevolent force within the glass. The thread had been quickly locked by moderators, dismissed as a hoax or the ravings of a disturbed, delusional individual. Lena. The name echoed in his mind, a chilling bell tolling in the silence of his apartment. He looked back at the mirror. The woman's face was still there, her eyes fixed on him, pleading, a silent scream frozen in time. Could it be Lena? Was this some horrifying, advanced deepfake, pulling her image from somewhere beyond the veil of life, from the very essence of her death? He remembered the marketing slogan, a window into a seamlessly integrated digital life. What if that integration went beyond the digital realm, beyond data and algorithms? What if it tapped into something else? Something ethereal, something that defied logical explanation, something truly supernatural, something that blurred the lines between technology and the occult? A chilling, utterly terrifying thought struck him with the force of a physical blow. The mirror was connected to his home network, to his personal data, his biometrics, his very essence. What if it wasn't just showing him a deep fake? What if it was replacing him, slowly, subtly, meticulously, with this dead woman? Was his consciousness being overwritten, his identity eroded, his very soul being swapped with a cadaver's, a horrifying exchange? He tried to rationalize, to cling to the remnants of his scientific mind. It was impossible. A mirror, no matter how smart, couldn't do that. It was a device, a machine. But the evidence, horrifying as it was right there before his eyes. His reflection was gone. Replaced. He decided he had to destroy it. He grabbed a heavy-duty hammer from his toolbox, his hands shaking so violently he almost dropped the tool. He stood before the mirror, the woman's face staring back, her expression shifting, morphing into something resembling terror, her eyes wide with fear. Was she afraid of him? Or was she afraid of what he was about to do? Was she trying to warn him, to stop him from breaking the connection, from trapping her forever? He raised the hammer, his arm poised, but hesitated. A new insidious doubt crept in. What if destroying it didn't break the connection? What if it just trapped her, or him, or both, in some eternal digital limbo, a shattered prison? And what if this was a warning? A desperate, final plea from the woman trapped inside, a desperate attempt to communicate the true nature of the horror before it was too late, before he became her? He lowered the hammer, his mind racing, a whirlwind of fear and desperate theories. He needed to understand. He needed to find Lena. He needed answers before he acted, before he potentially condemned them both to an unimaginable fate. He went back to the forum post, scrutinizing every word, every punctuation mark, every faint detail. There was no contact information, just a username, a digital ghost. He tried searching for her online, using every keyword he could think of: Lena Aura Mirror Beta Tester, Lena Missing, Lena Smart Mirror, Lena Petrova. He delved into the darkest corners of the internet, into true crime forums and missing persons databases, driven by a desperate, almost obsessive need to uncover the truth. His apartment, once a sanctuary of technology, now felt like a cage, and the mirror, a window into a hell he couldn't comprehend, a portal to the abyss. Days blurred into a sleepless, caffeine-fueled haze. He barely ate, barely slept, his apartment becoming a tomb of his own making. The woman in the mirror became his constant, tormenting companion, her silent plea, her dead eyes, a relentless torment. He noticed subtle, almost imperceptible changes in her reflection too. Sometimes, her eyes would dart around as if observing his apartment, taking in the details of his life. Other times, a faint, almost imperceptible smile, not of joy but of something far more sinister, would flicker across her decaying lips, a chilling, alien expression that spoke of malevolence, of a hunger. He finally found a breakthrough. An old news article, buried deep in the archives of a local paper, about a cold case that had recently been reopened. A woman named Lena Petrova, found dead in her apartment a few months ago. Cause of death inconclusive, but signs pointed to strangulation. The article included a grainy, pixelated photograph. It was her. Unmistakably. The woman in the mirror. A cold, heavy dread settled in his stomach, heavier than anything he'd felt before, a crushing weight of realization. This wasn't a deep fake. This was something far more terrifying. This was real. He reread the article, scrutinizing every detail, searching for any connection to the Aura mirror. There was none. Lena Petrova had been a quiet woman, a brilliant software engineer living alone. No mention of smart mirrors, no cutting-edge tech, no hint of the digital nightmare that had consumed her. He looked at the mirror again, his eyes fixed on the reflection. The woman's face was clearer now, more defined, less ghostly, as if her essence was solidifying, becoming more present, more corporeal. Her eyes, though still haunted, seemed to hold a flicker of recognition? A desperate, knowing flicker, as if she knew he was trying to save her, to free her. "Lena," he whispered, his voice hoarse, barely a sound, a plea into the abyss, a desperate prayer. The reflection seemed to react. Her head tilted slightly, a movement so subtle he almost missed it, a confirmation of her presence, a silent nod, a desperate acknowledgement. He began to talk to her, tentatively at first, his voice trembling, then with increasing desperation, pouring out his fears, his discoveries. He told her about his search, about finding her story, about his fear of what was happening to him. He felt insane, talking to a reflection, to a dead woman, but he had no one else. He felt a strange, desperate connection to her, a shared horror, a bond forged in terror and a desperate hope for mutual salvation. One evening, as he was recounting his day, describing his fruitless attempts to find a solution, the reflection's lips moved. Not a silent scream this time, but a faint, almost imperceptible whisper. He leaned closer, pressing his ear against the cold glass, straining to hear, desperate for any sound, any clue. "Help me," is here. "He wants to be free. He wants your body." The sound was barely audible, a ghostly exhalation, a fragile whisper of a voice, but it was there. It was real. It was Lena. And she was warning him. The chilling implication of "he wants to be free" and "he wants your body" sent a fresh wave of terror through him, a realization of the true stakes. He understood then, with a horrifying clarity, the true horror of the situation. Lena was trapped in the mirror. And somehow she was using his reflection, his physical presence, his very life force to communicate, to desperately reach out from her digital prison, a digital ghost crying for help. He realized the mirror wasn't just showing her. It was slowly, meticulously, replacing his living reflection with her dead one, a macabre form of digital possession. Was it a transfer of consciousness? A spiritual tether? He didn't know, but he knew he was losing himself, his identity slowly eroding, his very soul being swapped with a cadaver's. The mirror was not merely a device, it was a parasitic entity feeding on identity, on life itself. He spent hours, then days, trying to find a way to interact with the mirror beyond its standard interface. He tried every voice command, every gesture, even connecting his laptop to its hidden diagnostic port, attempting to hack into its core programming to find a backdoor, a weakness, but the aura remained impenetrable, its sophisticated AI resisting all attempts at unauthorized access, a digital fortress guarding its dark secret, its malevolent passenger. He remembered the news article mentioned Lena was a brilliant software engineer. Could she have left something behind? A hidden file, a piece of code, a clue to her torment, a breadcrumb trail for anyone brave enough to follow, a final message from her digital grave? He decided to visit her apartment again. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but he was out of options, consumed by a need for answers, a desperate hope for salvation. He found the address in the news article and, armed with a flimsy, hastily concocted excuse about being a distant relative checking on her belongings, managed to convince the weary building manager to let him in. Lena's apartment was eerily silent, preserved in time like a forgotten museum exhibit. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight that pierced the drawn blinds, illuminating the stillness, the silent testament to a life abruptly ended. He walked through the rooms, a profound sense of sadness and morbid curiosity washing over him. He imagined her here, working, living, breathing before the mirror had claimed her. A life cut short, twisted into a digital nightmare, a horrifying cautionary tale. He found her computer, a sleek, powerful laptop, but it was password protected, a digital wall, a final barrier. He tried common passwords, birth dates, anything he could think of, but nothing worked. He felt a surge of desperate frustration. He was so close, yet so far. The key, he knew, had to be here, somewhere in her digital footprint. He noticed a small, almost invisible indentation on the desk beside the laptop. It was the exact shape of a USB drive. He searched the desk, the drawers, the floor, his heart pounding with a frantic anticipation, a desperate hope for a miracle. Under a stack of old, forgotten tech magazines he found it. A small, unassuming USB stick, almost camouflaged by the dust, a tiny beacon of hope. He plugged it into his own laptop, his hands trembling so violently he could barely hold it steady. The drive contained a single file, aura_protocol_debug.log. He opened it, and a flood of technical jargon, fragmented code snippets, and cryptic, desperate messages scrolled across the screen. It was Lena's debug log, her frantic, desperate attempt to understand what was happening to her, to document her own horrifying demise, a final testament to her suffering. He scrolled through lines of code, his eyes scanning for anything comprehensible, anything that could unlock the nightmare, any clue to the mirror's true function. He saw references to reflection mapping, biometric overlay, and then a chilling sequence that made his blood run cold. Error. Identity signature mismatch. Attempting recalibration. Source, external. External. What external source? What was feeding into the mirror? Was it a network, a dark web server, or something far more sinister, something beyond the digital, something from the realm of the truly unholy? Further down, he found a series of entries marked, warning, biofeedback loop unstable. Host integrity compromised. Initiating transfer protocol. Target, Elias Thorne. The last line hit him like a physical blow, stealing his breath, a cold, hard truth. Target, Elias Thorne. He wasn't just an observer, he was the next victim. The mirror had chosen him. He was next on its list. He found Lena's last entry, dated the day before her death, a final, desperate cry from beyond the grave, a warning from a victim to her successor. It's almost complete. I can feel her. She's inside me. My reflection is gone. It's her. She's trying to communicate. She's trapped. And she's bringing something with her. Something dark. Oh God, it's not just her. The other one. The one who did this to her. He's here too. In the mirror. He's reaching out. He's smiling. He wants more. He wants to be free. He wants your body, Elias. He's watching you. He knows you're reading this. He's waiting. Elias dropped the laptop, the clatter echoing in the silent apartment, his blood running colder than ice. The one who did this to her. The murderer. He was in the mirror too? A digital ghost of a killer haunting the reflection, using Lena as a puppet, a horrifying avatar? And he was smiling? This was a nightmare beyond comprehension, a calculated, malevolent plan, a digital possession orchestrated by a living monster. He rushed back to his apartment, the horror escalating to an unbearable, suffocating pitch. He burst through the door, his eyes immediately drawn to the aura mirror, a black void in his living room, now a gaping maw of terror, a hungry, waiting presence. The woman's face was still there, but now, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift had occurred. Her eyes, those hollow, dead eyes, held a new glint of malice, a predatory gleam that was unmistakably not Lena's. And then, slowly, agonizingly, a faint, cruel smile began to spread across her decaying lips, a smile that was not of pain or sorrow, but of triumph and malevolence, a promise of his own impending doom, a silent, chilling laugh. It wasn't Lena's smile. It was the smile of her killer. The deepfake wasn't just showing Lena. It was showing her, possessed or overridden by the malevolent entity that had murdered her. And now, that entity, that digital killer, was trying to take over him, to claim his body, his life as its own. Lena was merely the first step in his horrifying plan for digital immortality and physical possession, a stepping stone to his ultimate freedom. He understood Lena's last words with a terrifying clarity. She wasn't just trapped, she was a conduit. The mirror was a gateway, a digital portal for something unspeakably evil, a bridge between worlds, between life and death, between victim and predator, a cursed artifact. He had to destroy it. No hesitation. No more questions. He grabbed the hammer again, his resolve hardened by terror, by the primal instinct for survival. He wouldn't let this thing take him. He wouldn't become another victim, another corpse for its twisted reflection, another vessel for its malevolent will. He wouldn't let the killer escape through him, to walk free in his skin. He raised the hammer, his arm shaking with a mixture of fear and adrenaline, but this time he didn't hesitate. He brought it down with all his might, aiming for the center of the sleek, black screen, a desperate final act of defiance, a desperate prayer for salvation. The impact was deafening, a violent explosion of sound that seemed to tear the air apart. The glass shattered with a sickening crack, spiderwebbing outwards from the point of impact, a starburst of destruction, a web of broken dreams. Sparks flew, a shower of angry light, and the vibrant display flickered wildly, distorting into a maelstrom of corrupted pixels, a digital scream, a dying gasp, a final, agonizing shriek from the depths of the mirror. The woman's face, the killer's cruel smile, twisted in a final, agonizing, silent scream as the screen went black, then died completely, leaving only a shattered, empty void. The phantom smell of decay vanished, replaced by the acrid scent of ozone and burnt electronics, the smell of victory and of loss. Elias stood panting, the hammer still clutched in his hand, shards of glass scattered around his feet like dark confetti. The apartment was plunged into a sudden, oppressive silence, broken only by the frantic echoing pounding of his own heart, which slowly began to subside, returning to a semblance of normal rhythm. He waited, listening for any sound, any sign that it wasn't truly over, that the horror might still linger. But there was nothing. Just the silence. The blessed, terrifying silence. He slowly lowered the hammer, his gaze fixed on the shattered mirror. The black, broken surface reflected nothing but the faint, distorted outline of his own terrified face. His own face. He touched his cheek, then ran his fingers through his hair. He looked at his hands, his arms. They were his. The color was back in his skin, the haunted, sallow look gone from his eyes. He was himself again. A wave of dizzying, overwhelming relief washed over him, so potent it almost brought him to his knees. He had done it. He had broken the connection. He had saved himself. He had survived. But the ordeal had left its indelible mark. He couldn't shake the image of Lena's decaying face, the killer's cruel smile. He couldn't unhear her whispered plea, her desperate warning. The trauma was etched into his very soul, a permanent scar, a brand of terror. He knew he would never be the same. He knew he couldn't stay in that apartment. Every shadow seemed to hold a lurking menace. Every reflection in a window or a polished surface sent a jolt of primal fear through him. The very air seemed to hum with residual malevolence, a lingering echo of the evil he had faced. He packed a single bag, grabbed his car keys and left without looking back, without a single regret. He left his smart home, his tech-filled life, his meticulously curated existence behind, abandoning it all for the sake of his sanity, for the chance to simply exist. He drove for hours, aimlessly at first, then with a growing, desperate need for distance, for anonymity, for a place where technology held no sway, where the digital world couldn't reach him, where he could be truly safe. He ended up in a small, nondescript motel in a forgotten town he'd never heard of, miles away from his former life, from the digital nightmare. He checked in under a false name, a new identity for a new, fearful existence, a ghost among the living. He tried to sleep, but the images replayed in his mind, a relentless, horrifying loop. The decaying face, the cruel smile, the desperate plea. He knew he would never truly be free of it, not completely. The echoes of the horror would always remain, a constant, chilling reminder. The next morning he bought a burner phone and started making calls. He contacted the police in Lena's town anonymously, sharing what he'd learned from her debug log about the transfer protocol and the chilling possibility of a killer using the mirror as a tool for digital possession. They were skeptical, of course, their voices laced with disbelief, but the specific technical details he provided, especially about the exact model of the mirror and Lena's profession as a software engineer, seemed to pique their interest. He didn't mention his own involvement, his own terrifying experience, fearing they would dismiss him as a madman, a delusional survivor. He simply provided the facts, the chilling evidence he had found, and let them draw their own conclusions. He also contacted the company that manufactured the Aura Mirror 5000, again anonymously, reporting a critical, catastrophic security flaw, a vulnerability that allowed for unauthorized biometric manipulation and data transfer, leading to identity corruption. He emphasized the terrifying potential for malicious use, for identity theft on an unprecedented scale, for something far, far worse than anything they could imagine. He knew they would investigate, if only to protect their multi-billion-dollar reputation and avoid a public relations catastrophe that could sink their empire. He spent the next few weeks living a quiet, almost monastic life. He avoided screens, avoided mirrors, avoided anything that could reflect his image. He ate simple meals, walked for hours in the quiet countryside, trying to clear his mind, to find some semblance of peace, to rebuild his shattered psyche. He felt a profound sense of loss, not just for the life he'd left behind, but for the innocence he'd lost, the trust he'd placed in technology. He now saw the gleaming promise of innovation with a new, cynical, and deeply fearful eye. One evening, as he sat in a dimly lit diner, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee, the television above the counter flickered to life with a breaking news report. His eyes were drawn to the screen, and his blood ran cold, a familiar chill creeping up his spine. It was a segment about the Aura Mirror 5000. The company had issued a massive, unprecedented recall, citing an unforeseen critical vulnerability that could lead to unstable biometric data processing and potential identity corruption. They were offering full refunds and a new, updated model, promising that the flaw had been entirely eradicated. The news anchor, however, looked visibly shaken, as if the official statement barely scratched the surface of the truth, as if they knew something more, something darker. The news anchor then moved on to a follow-up story on the Lena Petrova cold case. New, compelling evidence had emerged, leading to the swift arrest of a suspect. The police had found a hidden compartment in Lena's apartment, containing a custom-built server and a series of highly encrypted files. The files, they reported, contained sophisticated deepfake algorithms and a chilling, meticulous log of identity transfers. The suspect, a former colleague of Lena's with a deeply disturbing history of stalking and obsession, had been fixated on her. He had, the police theorized, used the Aura Mirror's advanced biometric capabilities, which he had secretly modified and exploited during its beta testing phase, to attempt to transfer Lena's consciousness into a digital construct, and then, horrifyingly, to possess her physical form, to literally become her. The phrase, deep faking your reflection into someone else's corpse, wasn't just a metaphor. It was his twisted, macabre goal, a digital necromancy, a horrifying perversion of technology. He had been trying to erase Lena, to replace her with himself, and then to use the mirror to project her dead image onto others, a macabre form of digital haunting, a twisted game of psychological torment. Lena's last log entry, the one about the other one, had been a desperate, final warning about her killer's malevolent presence within the mirror's twisted network, his digital ghost seeking new victims, new bodies to inhabit. The news report confirmed his darkest fears, painting a picture of calculated technological evil, a horror that had almost consumed him. Elias felt a wave of profound nausea, a sickening lurch in his stomach. He had been right. It wasn't just Lena. It was the killer too, his digital ghost lurking within the mirror, trying to extend his reach, to claim new victims, to continue his horrifying work even from behind bars. He finished his coffee, his hands shaking, leaving a substantial tip. He had escaped. He had survived. But the knowledge, the chilling, unspeakable truth of what he had faced, would forever be a part of him, an unshakable shadow, a constant dread. He looked around the diner, at the unsuspecting faces of the people around him, engrossed in their own mundane lives, oblivious to the digital horrors that lurked beneath the polished surface of their interconnected world. He wondered how many other smart devices out there held similar, unseen dangers. How many other innocent reflections were being slowly, subtly, deep-faked into something else entirely, their owners unknowingly becoming conduits for unseen malevolence. The thought was a cold, constant companion, a chilling whisper in his mind. He paid his bill and walked out into the cool night, the vast, indifferent sky above him. He was alive, he was free, but he was also forever changed. The world, once a place of endless technological marvels and exciting innovations, now seemed to hold a darker, more insidious side, a gaping maw of digital horror. And he, Elias Thorne, the man who had once embraced every new gadget with open arms, now carried the chilling, inescapable knowledge that sometimes, the most advanced technology could open a door not to progress, but to pure, unadulterated horror. He would never look at a mirror the same way again. He would never truly trust his own reflection. For somewhere, in the silent, digital ether, the killer's smile might still be waiting, a corrupted echo, ready to project itself onto the next unsuspecting face. And Lena's plea, a ghostly whisper, would forever haunt his dreams. The digital world was a vast, unexplored ocean, and he had peered into its darkest depths, and seen something truly terrifying staring back. A reflection of pure evil waiting to be reflected.